why. And welcome, Zoom people. Glad you could be here. Hi, Aurora.
Yeah, she's muted.
Oh,
Hello.
hi, welcome.
Hi.
We're just introducing ourselves now, so you haven't really missed anything. So this is why I took a class about 10 years ago, and I looked at these two charts. And this is what we typically, when we go on a listing, I'm going to pass it around so you can see.
I'm just wanting you to not feel like you're up there. Like,
Oh, yes, that's okay. You know me, I'm so shy.
I know you are. You're very
bothers me standing up here by
I'm
myself.
sorry.
So this is a tip, these are the typical actions that we do as realtors on a listing. And we accept this as the norm, right? So that's what we do as a list agent. As a buyer's agent, we pretty much do the same things, right? Just a different aspect of it, but it's the same. Aurora, I have copies of these for you, okay? But look at the difference.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
There's almost no difference in the tasks that you perform. So why would it be okay to have a contract for this amount of work, but no contract for this amount of work? If anybody has an explanation for me, I'm willing to listen. I could not fathom it. And when it became that clear to me, there has not ever been a time in the last 10 years when somebody's called me and said, hey, you know, you were referred to me, blah, 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 blah. Can you take me out to see some homes? There's always an exception, and I'll definitely will make an exception if it's somebody that I've done business with and have a relationship with already. But if you think that it's easy to sit down and have a buyer consultation when you've already shown people houses for 3, 4, 5 times, big mistake, because it will be harder. It's way easier to sit them down at the very beginning and in a consultation room and just talk to them about their goals, where they're going, do they need help selling? Just find out everything about them, and you just let them get to know you a little bit and see how you do business. Let them know what your experience is and what you're likely to bring to the table for them. I tell them from start to finish what's going to happen. This is buyers now, because that's what we're generally realtor listing. Hopefully we already know that. With a buyer, they need to know what the steps are. Okay, you go under contract, then what? And I'll walk them through right to the closing table, what's going to happen. And that builds me up in their eyes, because I know they don't have to worry that I'm going to forget anything. And so that's a good opportunity at that point to sit down and work with them and find out about them. My typical buyer experience after doing an in-depth consultation, chatting with them back and forth, once they've signed my agreement, I usually take them out once or twice and they go under contract. And the reason for that is I know what they're looking for. And I talk to them about, realities, financing, everything that they need to be participating in. So by the time we get done, we have a real game plan. I know what they're looking for. I know what their sensitivities are. I go through the must-haves and the wish list with them. So I'm not showing them houses all over the board. I know what their financial constraints are, if any. Any number of things get flushed out in 45 minutes. That's all it takes. And so for me, if they don't have time, you know how long it will take you 45 minutes to drive somewhere and back. If they don't have the time to sit down and do a professional consultation with me, they're probably not the people that need to be working with me. Does that make sense? Does anybody feel insecure about that? And I don't have any qualms about saying, I think you might be best suited to Remax or something like that, because this is how I run my business. And I'm very efficient at finding homes. I'll negotiate the best price for you. There's many reasons why it's important to get right out of the gate. And typically, typically, they don't really understand, most buyers don't understand that. They think that they're going to find a house and then go and get a mortgage. That's not the way this works, okay? How many times have you gone to Publix without your wallet and left with a shopping cart full of groceries?
None.
But have your wallet. The mortgage company is your wallet. So have you spoken to anybody? Have you worked with anybody? Are you, in conversation? How do you know who's the best? Who's going to service you the best? I work with different lenders all the time. And if you'll allow me, I'll put you in touch with somebody that I think will get you to your goals and your financial goals as well. Would that be okay? Typically, I will have already set that up before they come in. I'll call who I think, just from conversation, there's preliminaries on the phone before they come in. I always ask them a few questions. One of the questions I will ask them, what's the one question I will always ask them before they come in?
Are you working with
Pre-approval,
Are you working with another agent?
I ask that too.
pre-approval.
No, I always ask them, will you be cash or are you obtaining a mortgage? Because that then allows me to do my homework and be prepared for them. So if we have an in-house mortgage person here, I'll usually say, I'm going to step out of the room. I'm going to let you talk to this person. Sometimes it's on the phone, but I will have set it up ahead of time. And I always say to my buyers, because I'm a very private person, I don't like people knowing my business. I always say to them, I don't need to know anything about your business, nothing. I only need to know how much can you spend and when can we buy? That's all I need to know. And they're like, really? So that's it. Everything else is private between you and your lender. And that's just, I know how I feel about divulging information to a lot of people. And really, do we need to know? Not really. I would much rather know where they want to live, how they want to live, what's their lifestyle, how many kids do they have, how many bedrooms. I'd rather focus on that stuff. So I'm really honed in on what I'm going to be looking for them. Okay,
But that's your mission.
that's it. I mean, I don't need to know they have to clean up credit. I mean, sometimes during that initial conversation, they'll say, well, I have a few things to kind of take care of. And I'll say, okay, that's a really good that you're letting me know now, because sometimes it can take several months to clean up credit items. That's something that you can work on with your lender. And I'm glad you shared that with me, because again, I don't need to know all the details. You just need to share that with the lender. And when you're ready, but in the meantime, we can start getting you prepared. So when we do find the house, you're ready to go. That makes sense. Aurora, can you hear the conversation?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Thank you.
Don't see anybody else on there. Oh, Kathy and Jessica and Brenda's on there too. Can you all hear okay?
I can hear.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yep, you're good.
We can all hear.
Do you have any questions or feelings about having people come in to do a buyer consultation prior to working with them?
Nope. We're tracking with you.
Good, excellent. Any concerns in the room as far as, please be honest, because that's the only way I can kind of help you through it. Oh, you know.
My only problem is I had a customer last year that was looking at property in Fort Myers, and I had never met him before. He was staying in Fort Myers and looking in Fort Myers, and it's extremely difficult for me or most people to say, hey, you need to come down to Naples, we need to
Right.
have a consultation, and then we're gonna turn around and drive you back to Fort Myers.
No, I can understand that.
However, I did say that to him because I'm not shy about it, and I had probably 2 or 3 conversations with him, sent him properties, knew when he was coming in, and I did say to him, you can understand, for safety reasons, I'm just a girl, I don't know who you are, you need to come to my office. And he said, I have no problem with that. So I think that's another way that you can tell the difference between somebody being serious and somebody not.
That's, that's exactly right. And the safety aspect is super important for men and for women. I have had situation, I've been a realtor a long time. And during a long time, during those years, there have been times when I felt like my safety was in jeopardy. Okay, this flushes it out. I never ever feel that way. When I go off the beaten path, as far as having them come in, because when they come in, you can see them, they're revealing to you who they are, you get a little bit of background. People love to talk
About
including
themselves.
about themselves. If you ask leading questions, they will tell you everything you need to know. And they'll tell you things that you don't need to know or don't want to know. You just sit back and wait,
So
and they will
how
tell you.
do you handle those people that are in that situation, like I just explained?
Yeah, perfectly well. So, and I'll answer it this way. I think that was a very good solution. And if they are far away, let's say somebody's coming from the bell, okay? And they show resistance to that. I would answer it this way. We have Keller Williams offices everywhere. What I've found, I mean, I've gone to Keller Williams offices in other countries. And the one thing that they will always do, please rain on my carrots. The one thing that Keller Williams offices will always do, without exception, is provide you, if you let them know ahead of time, with a little conference room so you can meet with them in a professional environment. So that would be the only thing I would add to that. It's taken, we have Fort Myers and the Islands.
Yeah.
We have a Cape Coral office. There's Elite, which is more
which is right
Benita.
Benita.
But they're all offices. There's also offices up in Peace River, if they're all the way up there.
Yeah.
And here's why it's important to have people see you in your habitat, because they're coming into a professional environment. You're not meeting them at Starbucks. I guarantee when I call my doctor, he will never say to me, I'm going to come in and have a consultation with you. Okay, let's meet at Starbucks like around 3:30 and we can chat then. Okay, no, I can't see his degrees on the wall. I don't know if he's a real doctor. I don't know anything about him. If we are expecting the public to view us as professional, then we have to behave in a professional manner. And as a big company like Keller Williams, you've got all kinds of resources, and it's our culture to help each other. So I don't know of any office that would say, you're not coming here. I had reason to be selling a family member's home in New Jersey during COVID, or shortly after COVID. And I spoke to a couple of agents up there and wanted to find out obviously who's the best one. And so when I met with the gentleman who I selected, he said to me, I know it's in your season, whatever you need, we'll set you up with your own office. This is in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You need a computer, just let me know, whatever you need, you can continue working and I'll take care of your brother's house. So I think of Keller Williams, it's not just Naples. I think of Keller Williams as more of a global entity where we can avail ourselves. I went to Black Mountain in North Carolina. Hi, I'm from Naples. Oh, it's so nice to see you. You can go to a Keller Williams office in Puerto Rico. I mean, I'm in the islands all the time. There's Keller Williams offices everywhere. So for me, think about it that way. And if you want to be a professional with the knowledge and experience, think about it that way. Okay, doctors are consultants, right? They do consultations in other offices. My retina specialist has offices all over the place. It's no different for us. So if somebody's far away again, just say, oh, no, I have an office in Fort Myers. I'd be more than glad to meet you there, save you the trip down here. Okay. And I doubt anybody will say no to you.
So you've been in those offices, so for me, the way I am, it would make sense for me to go and visit those offices and get to know whoever that is there. And that's, I mean, it's a field trip. Yay, field trip.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it is.
If it's a buyer that's going to, buy a home,
Right.
really at any price,
Yeah.
average commission's 10 grand.
Yeah,
Is it worth driving to?
Oh,
town?
yeah,
For 10 grand,
definitely.
I do it in a heartbeat,
definitely.
and I do. So any questions about the reasons why we have people come into the office? And that's, it's on my forehead, CITTO. Come into the office. That's how I start every relationship, except a listing,
Right.
because then you have to go to their home, and that's their office, okay? So, but with buyers, we're just focusing on that today. It's so critically important to set the tone, because once you set that tone of professionalism, and then you start asking them to pay your fees, they're paying your fees no matter what. You know that, because the price of house reflects the amount of money. It's,
Yeah, so I don't want to get too far off the subject. Why don't we have sellers come into the office for safety reasons, just like we do for buyers?
well,
Because you
yeah.
can go to anybody's house and how do we know to trust them?
You
They're
don't.
inviting us into their home. Now
That's
we're
right.
very vulnerable there, right?
That's right. I typically will say, if it's somebody I don't know, I will typically say, I'll first of all ask them, obviously they'll give you the address. The first thing I do, because I'm very cautious, is I go on the property appraiser's website and find out who owns the property before I even go meet with them.
Yeah.
If there are two names on there, I always say, oh, let me, it's already loaded up.
What,
The, video.
the interview?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to do a couple other things, but I want you to keep talking till I'm ready.
You know, that's a problem for me, Jeff. I'm so sorry.
She's very quiet and reserved.
Yeah, just make sure to do the screen share when you get there.
Pardon?
Just make sure to do the screen share.
You got it.
So that's a really, really, really good question. I always check and see who the owners are of the property, make sure it matches the name that they're giving me, because most likely, and not in every case, most likely, if they're giving you their address, unless it's an abandoned house somewhere or something like that, you're going to be able to see, okay, who they are. But I always ask if there's two names on the property appraisers, I always say, will both people be there? Because both are, I need to speak to both of them, because they will be materially affected by a decision that one person will make. So you have to always make sure of that. And that's just second nature. While I'm on the phone talking with them, I'm on my computer checking to see whether, if they, I'm looking also to see the value. I'm looking to see what things are selling for. And then during the conversation, you can sound very, I'm very familiar with that. Absolutely. I see that homes in that area are recently selling for this much. What did you have in mind? You know, so you start feeling them out a little bit, and that prepares you for your listing presentation. Because if they're telling you they're in a $500,000 neighborhood and they're telling you they want to list for $950, that's
The
a whole,
keyboard's dead.
that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about the buyers here, but I was just thinking about that, you know, just.
That's a really valid
reality
question,
is,
but I
we're
always
worried
check.
about the buyers, but, you know, kind of.
I think you have to look for clues as well as in the conversation. I think the longer you're in the business, the more clues you get from conversations. You can kind of pick up, like, are they just tire kickers? Are they just getting 10 other agents? And I'll frankly say, while you're interviewing other agents, you know, just bring it up in conversation. Just want to make sure that, you know, I cover all the bases. I've been in the business a long time, and experience tells me to ask you this and ask you that, and, you know, I'll come along with CMA and show you.
Because it always the question, if they have multiple agents, and they normally do, are you gonna be first or last? Which one is the best? But that's a topic related to sellers and then nothing to do with the buyers.
Person who makes the best impression and is the most skill-based and knowledgeable about their neighborhood, they will make the impression. okay?
Yeah, but they might not wait for that person. They might feel comfortable with one that's ahead of that person, and they might sign it, and, because you don't leave the house before you get a signature.
Well, typically they'll say that if you're first in, I don't mind what order I go in, if you're first in, and they say, oh, I made an appointment with, yeah, I want to sign the contract with you, but I've got this other person coming. But that's no problem, we do this all the time, I'll call and cancel for you, so you're not put in that position. Oh, okay.
That works.
I'll do that for you. That's something that we do professionally all the time. And then I'll just tell them that you've already listed with me. So it doesn't really honestly matter. People today, I mean, they have the internet in the palm of their hand. They're constantly comparing prices and, I love the ones that want $300,000 over what the market, very well. And I would say, you're going to have an agent come in here and he or she is going to give you lip service. I've been doing this a long time. This is what your house is going to sell for. Well, can we just add this so that we cover this? You can. How will it feel if your house, you told me that you're going to move to Georgia, be near the grandkids? How is it going to feel to you if you're sitting here day after day after day? Showings, getting the house ready, putting the cat in a bag, whatever you have to do to get the house ready. How's that going to feel? And if they're like a little over, I'll say, how about we do this? My experience tells me, my contract, the market is telling me that this is what your house will ultimately sell for. If you would like to list it a little bit above that, can we at least agree that we will put a price reduction in 30 days and another one in 60 days? So I don't have to come back to you and ask you to do what the market's telling us that we need to do. Does that make sense? Yes, it always makes sense. So,
Coming back to the buyer agency.
yes, let's do that.
Now, neighbor just had a class a few days ago about the contract. How you approach highly resistant buyers? Let's say they're not willing to commit, probably, normally you sign a buyer agency for how long? 3 months, 6
1 year.
months, 1 year.
I do.
Now, you have some guys in town, they want to see some properties, they are not committed, but at least you want to be covered. Are you offering a trial contract for just this weekend, only for the properties you are showing, or for a short period of time, like a couple of weeks?
100%.
You do.
100%. There's always variations to everything and everything's negotiable. I just want to have some commitment that if they buy, let's say for instance, they come in town. I had I asked, it was a referral. I said, what's your comfort zone as far as price point so I can line up the right house? Well, he said, oh, between 7 and 14. What? He's between 7 and 14 million. Well, that's a big span. What's going to make a $14 million? Anyway, we signed, and what I do is if sometimes if they're from out of town and they're not sure if they want to live in this particular jurisdiction, I will say this applies to any home purchase within the Southwest Florida area. Because if they're telling me they may want to live in Jupiter or Vero Beach or the other coast of Florida, for whatever their reasons are. But also, this will run on like the listing that some months after you've shown them property, this is still in existence. So the reason for that is if they have a friend, but they want somebody that really knows what they're doing to help them narrow it down, they will try to use your time. So, but they also have in mind that their friend is going to do the transaction and then he's going to give it back. Does that make sense? So I always do like an overlap about 60 days from if I give them a 30-day window, then I'll do another, so 3 months, they're gonna lose the house anyway, so. Okay.
Yeah, but
It's always, I
agreement,
typically wanna-
the agreement, they have the retainer period. But then if they terminate and sign up with a different broker or agent, you lose that commission.
you can negotiate, every contract's negotiable.
But I will, and then when I argue with the lawyer that taught this class, I said, why is that even in there? I would strike it out.
Every contract is negotiable. And that, in particular, the buyer broker, the commission, it's all negotiable. Okay? And even though that we're not allowed to now advertise on the MLS that we're giving away a certain amount of money, you're still going to negotiate and try and get the seller to pay it. And that's part of that's a little variation on this video that I want you to see. The video is one that I modeled my buyer broker agreement after my consultation, and all of the similar questions. I find that people love humor, so I joke with them. I give them a chance, it's a husband and wife. You can give me your 3 must-haves, and then the wife will butt in. I said, oh, excuse me, here's must-haves, and they laugh, or say vice versa. Wait a minute, you get your list. This is her list right now, and they laugh, and it makes it a fun experience. I really try to make it a fun fact-finding experience for them. But by the time we get done, I know how soon they're ready to go, if they're approved, all of those things get flushed out at that meeting. And then we have a working relationship. I met a very lovely couple. I'm going to say it was one of my very first buyer broker agreements in this office. It was probably like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And we signed the buyer broker agreement. And we went and had them at 11 o'clock in the morning. We had them under contract by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I have the extremes a year later. They're still looking. And at that point, I just say, look, is this just that you love being around me? Or am I actually going to help you find a house? What are we doing? And that's extreme. That rarely happens, but it can. And with those folks, he was employed in DC, Washington, DC. So he was retiring, and they only had a limited amount of time to come here. So maybe every 2 months, say 3 months, they come down. So all told, the hours were a lot less than a year. But she was a Italian lady, traveled the world, great lady, and she was so particular. But they only had about, if I recall correctly, about 650. But now we're talking a few years ago, so that was like 900 today. And we looked, and we looked, and we looked. And finally, I lived on a nice neighborhood with no fees. The houses in there were going like for $1 million. And the house we finally bought was a complete dog. But great bones, courtyard home, lots of potential. And I said, this is your house. She said, oh, this is your house. Because I know the view when you walk outside, you want to see this house. We've looked at every house in Naples. This is the look that you want. This is your $1 million neighborhood. So you're going to buy it from whatever it was. I negotiated $561, put 200 in, and you're in $1 million house. And that's exactly what they did. So, you get to know people over time, but that was extreme. And I still feel tired thinking about them. She would send me like 40 houses. And before I got to the 5th one down the list and did a CMA and looked at it, there'd be another 10 in my inbox. And I finally said, look, it's too much. You're getting yourself all wound up. You cannot possibly remember one house. Even when you go and see houses, I limit it to 3, maybe 4 in one day. Because by the time you get to house number 4, you've forgotten what you saw in house number 1. And I give them a whole printout of each home and a rating system so that they can narrow it down. So the house that gets the most points is the one that we zero in on, and they like that.
I like that too.
That really makes it.
Do you have that on a form that you can share?
No, I just print out the MLS and I just say, look, star the things that you love about this house, and then we'll sit down and we'll look at which homes, which one checked all your boxes, basically. But we digress. So let's, so are we clear, like when you talk to somebody on the phone, you're going to get the information that you require, if they've got the lender, all of the things that make it workable for you, bringing them into the office, but doing your homework before they get in the office, and then being prepared for a professional, in-depth conversation about the process of buying a home. And you showing your knowledge and abilities by telling them every single step along the way, what's going to happen right up until the day they close. And I tell them at that time what I'm doing, because I always let them know, once we go under contract, my work starts. I know you think we've been working hard. That's not even the beginning of what an agent has to do to get from now to get that house closed into the table. There are many, many tasks that go into it. And just let them know what you're doing to earn your money. Now, today, we have to figure out a new dialogue, pretty much as far as the commission structure, because there will be resistance. Oh, you know, I don't want the sellers. And the conversation will go something like this. Oh, it used to be that the sellers paid for your commission. Why do I have to pay for your commission? Well, if I can negotiate the price for you, I'm going to earn my commission. You're going to save more than you're paying me in commission. Okay. When you find from a seller who's paying the commission, the seller is building in the commission into the price. Are we on this? Are we tracking? This isn't the exact conversation, but this is the gist of it.
The only thing that I see from a seller perspective now with new rules coming into place, the sellers now are anticipating or expecting to gain that commission they were paying for the buyer's agent.
Right.
They are looking at, oh, wait a minute, what was this about?
We're
If
saving money.
I'm not making more money. This
Right.
was us not paying that commission, but ending with that extra money in our pockets.
If I'm bringing a buyer,
Getting
Do I have a-
buyers to come to your house, and look at your.
if I'm bringing a buyer to that seller, and I have one of these signed by all parties, I'm going to call the agent and say, my buyer's ready, willing. Will the seller pay my commission? It's 3%. Will the seller pay my commission? And it goes on there as an addendum on the list contract. Everything's negotiable, right?
Absolutely.
So my life really is not going to change. Some of the way I do things is going to tweak, but it's not going to make any difference to how you do business. It's not a big change. If you get in the habit of doing a buyer broker consultation, they already know your worth and they're willing to pay you. But I'm going to have that conversation and say, in the event that they won't pay me, then I have a family, this is what I do, I'm a professional realtor. You understand that, you earn a living, this is how I earn my living, by finding the best real estate for you and getting you set up in the best financial position I can possibly do it. I will always go to the seller and ask them to pay my commission, always. It's no different than a showing agreement when you construction. You have these one-off builders who don't really have like a corporation behind them. If I'm going to show one of their homes, I call them, hey, Jesus, whatever his name is. I have a buyer that's very interested in looking at your house. Before I bring them to see the house, are you willing to pay me 3%? Oh, yeah, you do better. Okay, great. I'll send that over to you. You sign that and I'll make an appointment with you and we'll bring them over and we're done. It's no different. Is it any different than that?
No different than a FISBO.
It's no different.
What is the form that you're using?
A showing commission.
Oh,
agreement.
showing commission agreement, it's a mini listing contract. To the
So
library.
it's specific to that showing, right? So whoever is selling the home, if they have nothing on the MLS, which they typically don't, then you
That's the
call
far
them
bar
and say,
version, there's an able.
I would like to bring a buyer, have a buyer that's ready, willing, and able. Will you pay me 3% commission?
Oh. What if they come back and they're like, we'll pay 2%? Or 1.5%? Or, you know, they don't want to go the full 3%.
Well, chances are that they will do that. That they will do that. I will say to them, my buyer is not in a position to pay the other 1.5%. So let's talk about it some further.
Want me to do a little bit here, give you a little relief?
You know, being so shy.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I was teaching a class at Nabor and just finished at 1, but I wanted to augment what Carol's doing.
Has everybody seen the buyer broker? Okay. Do you
Does everybody
know
have-
what this looks like? Do you have the?
I'm not from this state.
Oh, okay, let me give you a copy. It's going to get tweaked a little. Is that the new one, Jeff?
No, the new one won't be released for another month. Does anybody need a copy?
I'll do them. Follow along.
And you run it,
Should I go make a copy?
how many do we need? Carol, can you just find my 5 copies? Thank you.
Sure. Make notes.
Okay, so. Carol, copy that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. There's another one that we have that's good also, this chart. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, in the absence of value, money is important. And I think that that's the whole crux. If I had to put anything in about all these settlements and about enumerating our value to buyers, in the absence of value, money becomes important. If you enumerate your value, you do a great job in your buyer presentation. You ask some questions, you talk about the value you're going to add before you talk about compensation. Then when you reach the compensation section, you should be in pretty good ground because you've just identified through a series of questions in the buyer interview, and we'll show you Mickey Baldini's here in just a couple minutes. But there's a lot of things going on with this process that are going to be the strong will survive and the strong will prosper. And it's an outstanding opportunity for you as a buyer to work with buyers and enumerate your value. And all of those agents that were buying Zillow leads, saying I work for free and all that, I think they're going to run into some fairly strong headwinds. Whereas we're going to feel comfortable talking to buyers and sellers about compensation. But remember, overall, money becomes important when in the absence of value. Well, there is, it's the same principle that we've had with sellers all along. Now we're going to turn around and apply it to buyers. So let me just give you a few minutes of culture on the commission lawsuits, all right? First of all, the NAR agreement, settlement agreement was approved, and they've set August 17th as the implementation date when the changes have to be made to MLS, contracts, all of the things that were talked about in their Q&A. So we at Nabor and Farbar is also working on revisions to all of our contracts, including the buyer broker agreement and the listing agreement, and anywhere that compensation is affected. But they're not going to be huge changes. All we need to do is make sure that we are explaining the compensation process to buyers and sellers, and then we're letting them know that compensation is negotiable at any time for any reason. There's nothing set in concrete. There's nothing that's been preset. We've always said as Keller Williams agents, you're free to negotiate your own compensation. Same with this. So once a buyer and seller, you're talking to them about compensation, you're saying, first of all, there's no preset rates. There's nothing mandated. It's whatever we negotiate to be in the best interest of you and your purchase. So with that being said, we have some clarity in that they've defined working with a buyer meaning working with a buyer, showing them property, sending them listings, helping them with their lender, things like that. That's working with a buyer. Working with a buyer is not when you are holding an open house and a buyer walks in, whether they're represented or not. You do not have to sign anytime you are working on behalf of the seller, you're not required to have a buyer broker agreement or any agreement with the buyer, okay? Only if they say, hey, I'm not represented, can you help me? Are there other properties that you can show me? Now we're in a situation where we have to have some form of written relationship. And Carol has been using that buyer broker agreement for most of her career, and she's not shy about having it signed. A lot of the rest of us, we haven't used it. Now we're moving into a mode where we have to have some form of a buyer representation agreement. And I think this agreement will morph quite a bit and be a little softer. Can it be for the 4 houses that they want to see? Can it be for the 2 days that they're in town? Sure. I think the duration will be in a state of flux until you adapt to the circumstances. I don't think that somebody that calls you to look at a property or look at a few properties wants to sign a 1-year agreement. Now, maybe after you've built your relationship with them and they feel comfortable with you, you can certainly extend that agreement, but you can make the buyer broker agreement limited to a specific period of time or a specific number of showings. And I think it's going to be not quite as much of a commitment for a buyer to make. But that doesn't mean as they get more comfortable with you that they might want to give you a longer period of time. So the buyer interview that we're going to show you is really astute because it asking the buyer questions. How do you want to be represented? What do you expect from me? What do I expect from you? These are things that can be done in 15 or 20 minutes. No, they don't necessarily have to be done on the first showing, but you do have to have something in writing that shows that the buyer signs it and you have discussed compensation with them, all right?
Could you use the buyer broker agreement as kind of a backstop? Like say, I've got a buyer, we're friends. We'll sign this piece of paper, you'll agree to pay me at least 1.5% minimum, right? That's where we're at, right? I'll do all this work for you, but if I find you a seller that is willing to pay 3%, and I keep 3%.
The way the buyer broker agreement is going to work is you cannot collect more than you have your agreement with the buyer. So I don't know how many buyer broker agreements should have 1 or 2% in there, because if you get 3, you can only collect what's in there. Pardon? No, you have to establish a maximum, and you can't accept more than that maximum.
That maximum will include everything like a transaction fee, which you call bonus.
The transaction fee, if you're collecting it on your behalf, is part of your compensation.
Okay, then it's built into that number.
Well, I think there's a space in there for you to put the number and a transaction fee, isn't there?
Yeah, but I don't know the new one, how it's gonna look. That's the old one.
So, I mean, many brokerages, with the exception of Keller Williams, many brokerages collect the broker only transactions.
They do.
We do not. We allow you to collect that and pay for your transaction coordination or anything that you want to use it for.
Can you modify the
Can you modify what?
the buyer broker agreement? Let's say I signed something with you 2 months ago. I said I do it for 2 good pieces. I got sellers that are offering.
Yes.
great.
You can modify a buyer broker agreement anytime that you want to change your arrangement with the buyer. So that could include extending it. It could include changing the rate. It could include anything that's in that agreement. So somebody says, well, I'm going to sign a buyer broker agreement for 1 week because these people are down here for 1 week. Okay, now they're going to come back a couple months later. Can you just take that same agreement and extend the date? Sure. You don't have to do a lot of paperwork, but you're going to have the agreement binding so that you get paid. And the other part of this is that we have flexibility in buyer broker agreements, both the period of time, what it's for, and we have the ability to sign it for a particular compensation rate. You cannot collect more than that compensation rate anymore. Now, If you sign it for X and the seller is paying you X minus a half, then on that agreement, the buyer owes you the difference. Are you gonna go after that? Your business decision.
It is, probably not,
I would say probably not.
probably not.
So
However,
I go back to what's at the bottom of that page. No worries, just relax. This is all fleshing out. You know, there was, oh, we have to sign a buyer agreement if somebody comes in my open house. No. Working with a buyer is defined and we know what it is. And, you know, we'll share that with you, but they put a Q&A out last week after Washington. And also we have the benefit of knowing that the Keller Williams agreement was approved by the judge. So we're covered as to all seller lawsuits and most buyer lawsuits. And we're fine. The judge said, you're good to go. Just 70 million among friends, no problem. But the point is that we're going to be in a situation where we're covered. We can move forward. We can work with buyers and sellers. And the difference is how we disclose compensation. And I keep going back to the same thing. In the absence of value, money's important. Right? You agree?
100%. And
So-
that just dovetailed right in with this, just showing your value at the consultation. That's your audition. That's showing who you are. That's showing your knowledge, showing your experience, and being able to contemplate and anticipate everything that's going to happen down the line. And things, you know, it's a roller coaster. Every deal you do is somewhat of a little bit of a roller coaster. Having the ability to say, yes, remember we talked about that at our consultation. After you do a buying consultation, I've never had anybody really mistrust me or judge my words in any way. They're usually very compliant, you know, as far as, because there's an expectation that this is how it's going to go, and that's how it generally goes.
To answer your question, George, I don't think there's a range. I think it has to be, this is what you're going to get paid or less, essentially, because you might accept a little bit less and not ask the buyer to pay the difference.
There's one little caveat to all of this. I have never been the type of professional that would not show a home because they weren't paying commission. Because I do enough business that it never really mattered. It was 2%, 3%, really didn't matter.
There were people who looked at the MLS and if it wasn't X, they weren't going to show the home.
That's
But
unethical.
I'm not sure how long those people are going to be with us.
Not long. That's an unethical stance to take. I've never done that. And I think it's, I have more pride in myself than that. So I think flushing out the commission in the beginning, which I always do. And then if you negotiate with the seller's agent, you're not dealing with the seller, you're dealing with their agent. And
So,
hopefully, you know, it's easily worked out that way, but it doesn't mean that we're not getting paid by any means. We're still getting paid everything that we do. It's just how you go about getting it, the change.
so we've always said, before you write an offer, call the listing broker, correct? That's always been a best practice. And you were going to ask them about how many offers and those questions. Now you're going to ask them about compensation. They may have, that listing broker may have published on their website what the commission is that they're offering, but they may not. And a lot of the smaller brokerages, they're not going to have all that published. So you're going to just add to your repertoire, call the listing agent. Where you call the listing agent and they say the seller's not paying the commission, that's that you can negotiate. Okay. The fact is that there's a couple ways the seller can say, I'm going to offer a credit to a buyer for contracts that I like, and that credit can be used to pay your fees, right? So that's going to be able to be offered on the MLS. The listing broker is going to go, we're going to talk. Now, if the seller thinks they're going to get a lot more money out of this, then let me have some of that stuff they're smoking, because I think it's just a matter of economics. But you're gonna be in discussion with your seller and the seller's gonna say, I'm not paying the buyer's broker. Say, fine. If an offer came in that was to your liking, that requested compensation to the buyer's broker, would you accept it? I don't know how many offers are flying around today. 85 days on the market, a lot of inventory. So I'm reasonably sure it's like our friend Tammy down at, she bought a home in Marco Island. She was a top producer in California for years. She said, Jeff, we've had zero buyer agent compensation for years. All I do is I say, here's my sales contract, here's my compensation agreement, and they're, you know, if you accept this contract, you're agreeing to pay me this amount of money. And that's similar to a commercial transaction. You put in a letter of intent and a commission. I think that there's gonna be a document that you're gonna put in with your, and I don't think it's gonna be the seller's not paying the buyer's agent. Unless we make them a cash offer that's really good, that they'll take and they'd love to have, then are they gonna turn down an offer for X percent? Probably not. But they don't wanna make a blanket offer of compensation and have a bunch of offers come in that they don't like and say, I'm gonna give you a credit or I'm gonna pay this compensation. So the dialogue with the seller, yes, it's gonna be different, but I'm not sure how many sellers are actually gonna turn down a good offer with a commission agreement with it. Now, they may have the mindset that I'm gonna end up with more. But Carol's representing that buyer and saying, we're gonna get you the best possible deal. And if you're gonna have to pay my fee, here's gonna be our offer. And I think that offer is going to take into account that buyer is paying your fee. So the issue is gonna be the buyer that can't afford to pay the fee. And there's still quite a bit of sentiment that we should not allow the buyer to spread that out over 15 or 30 years, but I still think that's gonna happen. I think Fannie and Freddie are gonna.
In this market that we're in right now, think about it. Think about what the market that we're in right now. In Lehigh Acres, it's customary, and some parts of Golden Gate still, for the seller to pay the closing costs. From there is a, you know, they can't come to the table.
It is what it is.
It's
Well,
the same
right.
thing. It's
So there you go.
not
The
like-
seller's giving a credit to the
So that's
buyer.
what I was gonna ask is, right now, I'm writing, when I'm working with buyers, I'm writing an offer with compensation, 3%
Right.
compensation, a 3% contribution from the seller to the buyer. And they're using it for buy down, they're using it for closing costs, they're using it for whatever they want to use it for. But the fact of the matter is, this is the same thing. This is nothing different.
Correct.
It's no different.
And-
That's the point.
FHA is 6%, so, and they take 3% of their closing costs and 3% to pay their buyer's agent. I'm not envisioning in this market, given the demographics and everything that's going on, I'm not envisioning a lot of cases where the buyer is gonna have to pay the fee. And I think it's really bad for first-time home buyers and for people that don't have the down payment. I think they're the ones that get hurt. So that's where we've got to negotiate. And I think that there's a lot of flexibility in what's going to happen in these documents. And there's a lot of flexibility to you who are going to be working on dialogues and what to say to a buyer when they call you up and say, hey, I'd like to see 123 Main Street. We're going to have a dialogue for that. Well, we're going to say, hey, great, I'd love to show you that. Let me ask you a few questions. And I'm going to explain compensation. I'm going to ask you probably to sign something that isn't going to bind you very, very far until we have a chance to cement our relationship. But I don't think the idea is going to be, hi, Doreen, I'd like to see 123 Main Street. Great, sign this document and I'll set up the show. I don't think it's going to work for you.
Nobody would work with you on that basis because you haven't shown them any value.
So I don't envision massive changes to our contract. Yes, I envision the whole compensation to be reworked to where the seller can elect not to pay it on the listing contract. But I see another document floating along that's saying, here's my offer, here's my commission. These two are tied together. If you want this offer, the listing broker is going to pay me this commission, right? That can be negotiated. There's going to be disclaimers everywhere. The commissions aren't set. They're not X%, they're whatever you negotiate, and they can be negotiated at any time. That's going to be the disclaimer that's going to protect you from you know, oh, they set the commission and oh, they do this and oh, they do that. So I think that's pretty important. I have something here that I'd like to
Can I
share.
add something? Sorry, Jeff, to interrupt. Sellers these days, lots of them are in a very good position financially because their mortgage rates are much lower. Most of them, or some of them, you know, they have paid their mortgages, it's mortgage free. They can do a seller paid back mortgage for the buyers, especially first time home buyers that are, you know, struggling to come up with that liquidity.
Seller financing.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, there are a lot more mortgages that are assumable than I knew. A lot of FHA mortgages are assumable, all VA mortgages are assumable, so maybe that comes into play a little bit. We'll have to, you know, there'll be more creativity, and the strong with a good story will survive and prosper. It's an opportunity for people like us that are well prepared, and it's an opportunity for you to help us, help you to be better as a buyer's agent. I have something here that the document that you're welcome to have. I got it off. I got it from a small amount of money from a lady, and I thought that this was pretty good stuff. So we have seller pre-listing packages. Why can't we have a buyer pre-listing package? Why can't we send this to our buyer and we don't have to go through the whole thing? But basically, this is a relatively short little buyer presentation, and it talks about things that I'm certain most buyers haven't thought about, right? And we're talking about the buyer consultation. We're talking about pre-approval. We're talking about what type of loan is best. We're talking about searching for a home. Homes are easy to find, but hard to buy. That's where I come in. Develop a pricing strategy. What are we going? How are we going to look at all this and look what's going on in the market and the neighborhood and come up with an offer? Okay. Here's what we need to write an offer. These are all the factors that go into writing an offer. And again, I'm not, going into excruciating detail here, but these are, and this is a way of enumerating your value to the buyer. And maybe it's a pre-listing thing. I'd like to send you this and show you all the things that I do. And then when we get together, we'll discuss it. And many times the buyer's going to go through here and go, holy Toledo, this is a lot of stuff. And so I think that this is, going to turn into a buyer pre-listing or buyer listing presentation. And I think, you're welcome to have this one. There's a couple of them in command that you can use.
It's on Canva, yeah.
This is Canva. If you want it, I'll send it to you. Just
Yeah.
shoot me an email and I'll reply with the link. And this is an editable link. You can put your logo in there. You can change the words, do whatever you want. It's Canva. All right. Just a suggestion that we have a written document that I hand to you that you have a takeaway of, like, I didn't know you did all those things, Carol.
Well, I've
never thought about it.
already done the job for many years, and
I have a chart too.
Yeah.
this is what I do for my money. How about you? My work starts when we go on the contract.
So, I think that well, let me do one other thing, if I can find it again.
Yes. Your carrots are getting longer.
For your guardian.
Should see her garden. Oh, goodness.
We are waiting.
I'd rather be gardening than taking people around as an Uber driver. Need to buy a house that will never buy it.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
So here, I think this is very similar to the chart. Let me make sure I'm sharing this. This is very similar to the chart that Carol's handing out here. But this is another way of showing a buyer all of the steps that are necessary to complete a deal. And again, these are all things that enumerate our value. And you can say, let's just give me 5 minutes. Let me just show you all of the steps that we're going to go through in order to provide you with a smooth closing. And I will tell you that the majority of these buyers probably don't know about it. They probably haven't thought about all these steps. And maybe they've done a few real estate transactions in the past, some good, some bad. But I think that when you enumerate all of the things you're going to do, that they're gonna start to say, wow, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. And I'm, you know, hoping I don't have to pay you, but you're adding a lot of value.
You know, it's no different. I'm thinking while Jeff was talking
Did you have,
about,
you have someone?
I passed them out.
Okay.
I can bring in your value. Showing you value is what sets you apart. Remember going on a listing appointment a couple of years ago, and I went through the listing presentation, everything was good. I really appreciate this. We are going to try and sell it by ourselves for a few weeks. I said, that's great. I can understand why you would want to do that, save a little money, okay, great. And we went through that whole dialogue, and then I said, I'm sort of packing my stuff up and walking out, and I said, let me ask you something. You're from Massachusetts, right? Yeah. So who's going to do all your disclosures for you when you get a buyer? Oh. I said, so who's going to actually do the contract for you to protect your interests? Oh. So I'm just thinking now what things you might come up against if you do the file. Who's going to handle all of the HOA documents, making sure you get it? And I literally went through every step that it takes to sell a condominium. And I said, I totally understand. And look, if you come across any problems, give me a
Oh,
call.
I'll be glad.
And I'll be happy to walk you through it. The next morning at 9 o'clock, we thought about this all night. There's way too much for us. Can you come and list?
So one of the steps
Okay.
that I used to have when I was an
Show
agent,
my value.
working FISBOs, I'd send them the contract, with sample written all over it,
Right.
and it'd be like this thick. I'd say, let me know if you need any help with any of this. They'd
Let
all
me know
go,
if you need
what do you mean?
anything.
I said, that's what you're gonna have to do when you get a buyer. What do you
And then
mean?
the whole, you know, you're gonna do an open house, you're gonna do open houses, are you gonna qualify that? How are you going to be the one that leaves work to show your property? Oh, you're just gonna show it on Saturdays and Sundays?
What about the security part? Every agent in Naples that I know of is fingerprinted, we know their life story. We know everything about them, so anybody that I would allow into your home, it's already been checked. How are you getting to, where your safety is safe? Know what's coming into your home. And if you plant the seeds, they go, oh, they're thinking about, but they're gonna let the cat out. You know, just always be a step ahead. Know that let them know that you know how to anticipate what we're going to be up against. Guarantee they're calling you the next day.
No,
We're up all night.
here's a few things that you need
About it.
to think about. Oh, this is command. There's a number of buyer presentations already in there, but you have to plug in all the stuff. So you can go into command and get any one of these 5 that we found back when I was looking at it. You can also use this one that I just gave you from Canva, which I thought was a little bit easier to work with.
Softer. It is.
And so does everybody get the feeling that this isn't gonna be so complicated as we thought when we walked in here? Because I hope you are. I mean, it's not
It's no
gonna be,
different than what you're
it's
doing
not-
right now.
but if you're thinking now that you have an advantage of knowing more and being able to comfortably talk to a buyer who calls you to see a property, you're winning. You're gonna win. And the compensation part of it is a reasonably small part of the discussion, so long as you've talked about your value before you talk about compensation. So let's play this consultation. Are you guys okay with the
Yes.
buyer interview? And I really think if you can take notes, there's gonna be 8 or 10 questions in here that you're gonna go, wow, that's a great one.
I would just like to make sure that you understand that there will be some tweaks to it now. This is from 2016. But
Can
it's the.
Joris, how do I
format
share
I
this to
use.
make
I
sure?
promise You I could.
You are screen sharing. Oh, now you stop.
We're already screen sharing.
If you get this consultation,
So that's sharing, that's screen. I'll have to share that.
it's never going to be an issue.
Now I can go.
Yeah. I will tell you all that this
Really
consultation
glad you can make it today.
has all the.
And I'd like to share something with you.
But it's a lot quieter than my consultation.
Are you ready? All right, yeah, ready. So this is, believe it or not new, but try to think about you're sitting there with the buyer.
Hi, Rebecca, how are you? Hi, Nick.
There you go.
Hi, Rebecca. I'm really glad you can make it today. And I'd like to share something with you before we get started. I'd like to show you the mission for your meeting. And our mission is to help you achieve your goals and exceed your expectations, so you never hesitate to refer to your friends and your contractors. Good? Oh, that sounds great. Now, one of three things is gonna happen with me in our meeting. One, you're gonna understand all the benefits that our team can provide to you. You're gonna choose to hire us. Now, great. Two, well, you may not understand what benefits our team can provide to you, and you may choose not to hire us. To be quite honest, that would be so right. Or three, unfortunately, I may have to choose not to represent you in the purchase of the next time. Is that a fair assessment? Okay. Tell me more about that third. Well, remember I told you my mission was to help you achieve your goals and exceed your expectations. If at any time today, I feel that I can't achieve your goals or exceed your expectations, I would rather turn you down now than let you down later. And we can part friends. Does that sound good to you?
That's a great line.
So let's get started. Okay, Rebecca,
Turn it down now.
are you ready? I think these are the really tough questions. Okay, not really, but it's the fun stuff. Okay. I'm gonna ask you a series of questions. The first thing I'm gonna talk about is about the actual transaction, what's gonna happen in the process. Second part is about the house. So we're not gonna talk about exactly what it is you want in the house yet, but we're gonna talk about the transaction, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not very good at all, 10 being absolutely awesome, what one thing has to happen during this process for it to be a 10? I'd like to get into
Conversation.
Did you hear that with the rain? It's intense.
So we could add one more thing to make it since last start with that. Get my private, get say within budget. What's that? Well, a little stretch though. So I'd like to stay where we try to keep it. I can really like to go, but I really like to get my price. 250s is where we want to stay. That would be the magic range.
It's 2016.
Then if we could add one more thing, then it could 10 plus. What would happen? No hassles during the process. Okay, a smooth, easy process. I'm a busy person, I'm working thing along, we just don't have a lot of time for dealing with difficult negotiations or difficult sellers and. Describe to me what you mean by difficult negotiations.
Well, I don't know, I guess this is my first time, so I'm not sure, but I hear some horror stories out there that you fall in love with a home and then, you know, things go sour at the negotiation table, or you end up paying a lot more than you wanted to, or you have to make concessions because, problems with inspections. I just hear horror stories.
So you just want it to be smooth and easy, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Let us take on the stress.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Rebecca, let's talk about the house now. Okay, all right, this is the fun thing. Here's the deal though, we're only gonna get 3 have-to-haves. We can have lots of wants, but we're gonna have 3 have-to-haves, okay? So on a scale of 1 to 10 again, 1 being not so great, 10 being everything you want. What does your new house have to have and or be for it to be a 10?
3 bedroom.
And why is that important to you?
I want to rent it myself, rent it to my daughter, and I guess. If it had 4, that would be great, if I could have a home office.
But 3 is an absolute
But
must.
I really, yes.
4 would be nice.
4 would be nice, 3 is a mess, because I have to have.
If we could add one more thing to make this house even better, 10 plus, what would that?
walking distance from the elementary school. For my daughter. And describe to me what you mean by walking distance. That I could walk her there in the mornings, you know, before I head off to work, or that she could, walk with friends or other parents back home after, so, you know, few blocks, 2 blocks. Okay, well, it's different. And how old is she? She is taller now. Head was down. All right, and now we get to add one more thing. Now, this is the 10 plus plus thing. Okay, what is that? A nice yard. Nice fenced yard. It doesn't have a big deck off the back.
Does not.
Well, not a high deck. I'm afraid of you know, the daughter running outside and falling off the deck or something. So something that's sort of a level yard, nice big yard that level off the backside. And there's a lot of hills here where we are, so. Why is that? Well, I just think her safety, and so I can look out the window and see her playing.
Okay. Now, I want you to describe for me what you mean by nice big.
Okay. She loves dogs. We don't have one yet, but we will. We see that in our future. So, you know, some running space for a dog. A small, you know, playscape or swing set or something, so my daughter. But I like landscaping, but I don't want it to consume my life.
Do you see how she's going clean yet?
What a big
maybe
kitchen.
an average size lot or larger.
Yeah. So she's going 3 and 4 layers deep, and that's what I do.
Those are all very important.
What's your
Now, we're gonna get
reservation
to
seeing
the
this
wants
right
in
now?
just a minute, but I have a few more questions. So we're
Who's
gonna-
in control of the consultation?
First
Who's
question
showing
is-
their value in this one? Yeah,
Honesty.
What?
she's thinking and provoking, currently thinking.
Integrity. And, so sense of humor, a good personality, I like to have fun, even if I'm working.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a
Nothing else.
no, that's really more. Communication.
Describe to me what you mean by communication.
I like to be informed, so I like to know what's going on in the process, even if somebody else is handling it, maybe. I like to know what's going on.
When you say informed, you describe to me what you mean by that.
If we put in an offer on the home, I want to know, you know, where we stand in the process, and the seller's been informed of that, you know.
So call every day, or when I have something to tell you, or
Yeah,
just
just when you have
because?
something to tell me. When you have something to tell me. I mean, I'm gonna trust that you know what you're doing, and you're just telling me when I need to be involved, but I like to follow along, interested.
Anything else somebody wants to do?
Well, more on communication, I love emails, phone calls, text message, all of that, so, you know.
Anything else?
How does it honestly, right? No, those are.
Now, how does somebody live with you?
Dishonesty or trying to be sly or keep things from me or, maybe out for themselves. And not keeping my interests and my daughter's interests. I think communication breakdown, okay. I think there has to be a level of respect, mutual respect for each other, as professionals and busy people and parents and whatever we have in common.
Anything else you can have? How somebody lives with you?
This honestly would be a big one. That was the main one.
Okay. All right, and here's my last 2 questions.
Okay.
They're really tough.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What do you feel you have the right to expect from me as your realtor?
I think I have a right to ask you do a thorough job for me, to know your market, to know what's out there, to help me narrow that field. I've got some good ideas, but I need help. To be courteous to me, to the sellers, to other people involved in the process. To help me get a good price and,
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not expensive products.
Do you see how
It's
this
Amazon's other
falls?
company.
Kills it after.
Bible pays me
It
$8,000 to $10,000 every single month in taxes.
It is, it's on YouTube.
get something
On you.
about it.
Full blown
To
daily.
get a home that I'll be proud of.
We'll
And
get
that
it, we'll get it.
I don't want to think about.
It's at the top.
Sorry, I just want to make sure everybody has
Thank
questions.
you.
I'll download it for us.
Okay.
So that we can actually role play it.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
The more familiar you are with the script, it's second nature to me now. I can verbatim tell you exactly what she's going to say. I interject a lot more humor, but everything is as I think she's a pro at doing this. And so I model my consultation on this format, and it has worked for me. So
And you notice it's only 17 minutes. That's part of it, you know, and the rest of your consultation is gonna be getting to know them, but this is.
getting them a drink, showing your servants
Right.
involved, talking about yourself a little bit, not much. Most people prefer to talk about themselves, but just let them know who you are, what your values are. I will always start out with people, you know, I don't work on Sunday mornings. That's Keller Williams agents, it's God, family, and business. And so that's a priority for me in that order. And that doesn't mean I won't work Sundays. It just means I'm not available between whenever, 8 to 12.
8 and 12, right?
They respect that because you're creating a boundary and this is how you live. This is the format of your life. They feel comfortable working with somebody like that because you're not haphazard and all over the place. So don't be afraid if there are times when you have a priority in your life. Let's say you have a bowling date with your husband Wednesdays from 4 to 7. Let them know that I am not available. That's family time, blah, blah, blah. And people really appreciate knowing that that's who you are. So you just in little ways show them, maybe tell them what your interests are. I have a tremendous interest in new construction. So I always tell them, you know, when it comes to the home inspection, I'm a pro and I'll be there. They don't need to be there unless they want to be. It's their right to be there, but I'll make sure that not only is it managed at the inspection, but afterwards follow up. You know, that there are so many ways to show your value. And we've all had experience with medical stuff or dentists. When you go into that situation where you are vulnerable and somebody is a take charge, knowledgeable, don't you walk out of there feeling so confident, like,
They
"Geez,
got this.
found
I
the
know they're
right
gonna take
person.
care of
I
it.
don't need
Right.
to worry about this." That's what you need. That's your goal. That when they leave, you have trust. They have trust in you, and it should be well-deserved trust. You know, what I'm telling you now is how I live my life. I have integrity in all things. I don't ever compromise. If somebody would ever ask me to do anything, you know, in any way, shape or form, it would be a hard no. And I don't apologize for that. So
So we have 7 minutes left. Does anybody have any other questions or?
I urge you to, I still look at this video. I can recite the entire thing. Thank you for coming today. You know, 1 of 3 things is going to happen. I know the whole thing verbatim because I've made myself learn it. And it's now not a script, but it's just a simple conversation. But I get my point across and I always sit down with a notepad. Because when somebody's sitting taking notes, they're paying attention to you and what they're telling you is important. So that's a mnemonic device to show them, and I genuinely am. If you're dealing with 3, 4, 5 people at a time, you better have notes and they better be in their file so you can go back and reiterate, because you might not see them for 2 weeks. And then, oh wait, are they the people that wanted the deck, the flat deck, because they have a little kid? Don't show
Right.
them stuff with a high balcony. They don't want that. You know, you have to be very mindful if you're selling yourself as a caring, compassionate, detail-oriented person. The first time you forget something that they've told you, that trust will erode a little bit. So I urge you to always keep that top of mind. Okay, here we go.
Not moving, but that has resale value.
We have a right to expect convenience, that's my policy. For me, to be honest with you,
Less than an hour.
for me to communicate with you, when I have questions or issues, or I'm excited and so forth, I want to be able to communicate honestly, but you know as a professional how to use that information to help me instead of hurting me. To make this process fun and pleasant, painless, smooth.
anything else you feel have a right to expect from them?
That I'll be honest with you, that I'll be open with you and, I'll let you know if something's going on.
That sounds great. That's terrific. Now, Rebecca, we make 100% commitment to our clients, and all we ask is that they make 100% commitment to us. How do you feel about that?
What do you mean by 100%? What's involved in commitment?
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go above and beyond. We're gonna make sure that, that you're gonna receive all the best care, that you're gonna find the house that suits your needs. And we wanna make sure that you know that we will give you that commitment, and all we ask is that you give us that commitment in return. I don't know if you're aware that National Association of Realtors states that only 35% of the for sale by owners that are actually sold go to the closing table. And only 75% of the realtor transactions actually go to the closing table.
Wow.
Now, I can assure you that's not gonna happen when you work with us. Because you see, we have systems and policies in place to ensure that you're gonna get to the closing table.
Okay.
As long as something unforeseen happens, such as a tragedy or something in the weather or something like that. But when it comes to us doing our job and you doing yours, that's what we wanna do.
Okay.
Okay with that? But what I like to do is I like to have an agreement of loyalty.
Okay.
This is my agreement of loyalty.
All right.
And all it is saying that we're gonna work together, that you would like me to work in your best interest, and that you're gonna deal with me honestly and fairly, and I'm gonna do the same to you. Does that sound good? Okay. Good. Let me just fill it in here. I'm gonna put your name here. Spell your last name for me again.
John, John.
Okay. All right. And when was it again that you wanted to be in your new home by?
Christmas.
Okay, so we're gonna say by December 24th. How does that sound?
Okay.
So we're gonna date this
From today until December 24th.
Okay. Okay, and we're gonna look for a single family, correct?
Right.
And what is the absolute top price that you want to be?
I really would like to say the 250.
250, really would. Would you push yourself any higher than that?
Maybe, if it was just absolutely fantastic.
So possibly the 260?
Mhm.
Okay, let's just say top end 260,
Okay.
okay? But we want to put our bottom end somewhere about 225, is that all right?
Okay, yes.
Okay. We're gonna be in this county. Okay, now let me just share with you what this states.
Okay.
Here's the broker's obligations, and basically is to deal with you honestly and fairly, to help you with your financing options, to make sure you understand the contract, to negotiate on your behalf, and of course, just to make sure that I'm looking out for your best interest at all times. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I want you to read this, but I'm
Right.
just gonna give you in layman's terms. Okay. Now, your job is basically the same thing, just to be honest with me, upfront with me, be loyal to me, and that's all I'm gonna ask you to do. If there's something you don't like, talk to me about it. You know, if you don't like the houses, that's okay, they're not mine. Okay, and my job is to help you get through this process. Sound fair? Terrific. So now you know what your obligation is and what my obligation is, correct?
Okay.
Okay, there's a few things you do need to know. A couple of things. First thing is here is that I could charge a retainer fee for you to have my services, but you know what? I don't feel I deserve to be paid until I've actually completed the process. Sound
Okay.
fair? So I'm gonna make this a zero for you.
This is going to
Okay.
be a little bit different, that's not how we agree.
Until what time? Until the time it closes, but then you're not gonna pay.
Okay.
Isn't that exciting?
Right. What do you mean?
This, well, it takes us right into the next section.
Okay.
And it talks about how we get paid. And right here, we're gonna fill in what our percentage is.
Okay.
And what this states is that, you're allowing us to represent you in the purchase of your next home, and that we're going to ask the seller to pay this fee to ourselves.
Okay.
Okay, now typically,
That's not
understand,
changing.
the property is in multiple listing service, the seller's already agreed to pay a fee. So you don't need to worry,
That's the part that's
typically builders
no
know.
longer be in the MLS.
And in most cases, most for sale by owners will pay a fee as well. In fact, I've never had a situation where they haven't.
Okay.
Now, remember, that's because we represent you, but they're going to be paying the fee. Sounds pretty good, huh?
No, it does. I didn't know that. Good.
Now, the only thing you need to be aware of though, is if you go out and you look at houses without me, or you start negotiating without me, and then the seller says they don't want to pay my fee because they didn't realize I was part of the transaction, you may be obligated to pay that fee at that time. You can understand how that could be a problem.
Right, I understand.
So basically what this means is that, we're gonna kind of be in an engagement period, if you know what I mean, okay? And we're just gonna hang out together and we're gonna be honest and upfront before we make sure, I don't want you out there doing anything that might jeopardize yourself.
Okay.
Sound fair?
Sure.
Because my job is to protect you.
Right.
You all right with that?
Mhm.
Okay, terrific.
Now, what if at some point I start to not feel comfortable with our relationship or the process?
Well, all I'm gonna ask is that you give me an option to try to fix that for you.
Okay.
And if we can't, I'm not here to put a chain around your neck. I want you to be happy in the process. I want a customer that is happy working with me and I'm happy working with them. And if we, for some reason we feel we can't work together, we'll part friends. Would that be all right?
Okay.
But just give me an opportunity to fix it first.
Okay.
Would that be fair? Okay. And it states that right here. It gives us an opportunity that both of us could actually, either of us could cancel it as long as the other party agreed. Is that fair?
That's it.
Okay, kind of like the easy out. So like I said, this is mostly just to protect both of us during this process. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. And then, of course, the last thing here we need to talk about is the agency relationship. If you need to choose how to represent. And we've already talked about that in the beginning, in disclosure. So, and you already chose single agency, transaction broker. So pretty much that's the whole agreement. All I need you to do is review it, obviously, take it 5 minutes and read it. And then I just need you to sign right here where I'm gonna put the X.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you, Nikki. It sounds great. I mean, it really explained it very well. I understand what's going on. I feel comfortable.
Well, good. I'm looking forward to getting started.
Good, me too.
Me too. Here you go. Thank you.
I just want to point out something that's important to me, because I do this often enough. In the video, and I don't know if Nikki was doing it unconsciously, when she started talking about how she gets paid, her voice rose. You've got to just have that quiet confidence. Don't let your tone change at all. It's very matter of fact. This is how we do it. The other thing I do, which is different, but it really gets the buy-in for the signature, is I have the buyers fill in the buyer broker agreement. And I've always done it this way and it works. I fill in the front, and while I'm filling that in, I have them fill in all their information back. So guess what? We're doing it collaboratively. It's not just me sitting there and then watching me. I said, why don't you fill in all your information on the back for me? Just like when you go to a listing and you have them do the seller's disclosure, and I'll fill it in the front, and then we'll go through it together. How does that sound?
You ask for their IDs.
Always. Always. I don't have time to waste. I
Correct.
told you, I like.
But lots of agents don't.
That's what
Most of the agents don't.
I always ask for the ID. When they leave, and Nikki doesn't address that, she talks about when you go out and look at open houses. Here's how I end it. I give them a script. So I'm going to teach you something now. And you might think it's silly, but I'm dead serious. So I have a stack of my business cards. And I say, whatever people ask you from this point forward, the correct answer is, yes, I'm working with Carol Sabatino. So let's just run through that a minute.
Let's.
Hi, thanks for coming to my open house. What's your dog's name? I'm working with Carol Sabatino. So one day, funny story, my son came in, my son was OP here for a spell. He came in and he saw me in the conference room doing a buyer broker agreement, this was like 8 years ago. And he came saying, oh, hi, how are doing? I said, Adrian, this is Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. We're just getting set to get to work. And they've just signed a buyer consultation. And he said, oh, I'm very pleased to meet you. I'm Adrian Sabatino. And they both in unison said, we're working with Carol Sabatino. He said, oh, I see my mother's been working with you already. They were,
Mom's ahead of you.
and I always give them a stack of business cards. And I say, whenever people ask you a question, here's a conversation I have at my home office every day. I have 2 or 3 boxes of business cards. And I talk to them because I'm a little wacky and I talk to myself sometimes. But every day I say to those business cards, you're not doing me a bit of good up there on the shelf. Let's get you down and start handing them out. And I'm not kidding. Anything I tell you is the truth. Maybe I'm crazy, but they're not doing any good in a box. So whenever you have a chance to give a stack of business cards to people, I don't care if they leave them in the locker room of the gym. Who knows? Whenever I go into the bank, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I would like to go in person. Hey, who needs to buy and sell a house? Are you ready to move yet? To my teller who knows me. Oh, Carol, you're so funny. You know, my sister's boyfriend wants to find a fixer-upper in San Carlos. Do you have a car? Do I have a car? Absolutely, Nina. Have him give me a call or give me his number and I'll give him a call. But just have those conversations with yourself every day. You don't have to be crazy like me, but think about it. So every buyer consult you do, they are walking out with a stack of your business cards. And if anybody asks them who they're working with, I cannot tell you. Here's a case in point. A friend of mine who was selling a home some years ago. She had my business card and I went through the script with her. I mean, family members do this. Yes, I'm working with Carol Sabatino and Carol Williams. She gave my business card to somebody in her bank, just a casual conversation. And fast forward about 2 months, maybe, I had a phone call from somebody and she said, I would like you to come out to look at my house, to give me an opinion of the price, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, safety concerns. How did you hear about me? And she, I don't know, it was an investor or a builder or somebody who comes into the bank, a customer. And she just happened to give me one of your cards one day. I said, okay, this was my good friend. I just closed on a house with them about 3 weeks ago. I listed that house and sold it. They bought 2 different building lots with me. We just closed on a new home build. They were leaving town. That's why they sold their other house, but they hated it and came back. I've done 4 transactions with them and I'm about to do a 5th. And that was because the script was, yes, I'm working with Carol Sabatino, here's her call. That's really all you have, you know, it's a memory jogger for people and they'll stick it on their fridge for a month later, you know, call that person. So I'm not kidding when I say I look at my business cards every day and say, you're not doing me any good up there on the shelf. I bring them down and I find as many people to give them to as I can find.
There you go.
True story.
Let's give Carol a hand.
If I can promise you, I will go out on a limb and promise you, if you learn the script as I have, so it's not a script, but it's a simple conversation when people come in. You get all the bases covered in your presentation. Just make sure you keep your voice down when you start talking about, you know, because Nikki's voice goes up, that's a sign of anxiety. Don't give that away. Don't give away that you're anxious talking about commission. It's no different than if you go to buy a new car and you say to them, what's the interest rate? What it is, right? So you've got to get paid for your services, and showing value is how you get paid for your services. And by the way, if you keep control, like Nikki knows in this, the whole transaction will go that way because you've set the tone. There may be a few ups and downs here and there, but I can count on one hand how many people I haven't really liked at the end of the transaction. I mean, that's over 30 plus years. I can remember the ones that I really didn't like. There's certain clients too, I would never do another deal for them because they're just miserable people and I don't choose to spend my life with them. So never be afraid to be who you are as a person, and that comes through.
Well, that's how she opened up her thing, saying, okay, one of three things is
One
gonna.
of three things is going to happen today. You'll choose to work with me and that would be awesome. You'll choose not to work with me and that wouldn't be so great. Number three, I may decide I don't want to work with you and they'll look at you like, why wouldn't you want to work with me? Let me explain to you why I wouldn't want to. If I don't feel like I meet your expectations, if your expectations aren't realistic, and from my experience, I feel like I cannot meet your needs and help you attain your goals, I would rather just have a nice conversation with you today and just part friends. Doesn't that sound fair?
That was a great tagline. I'd rather turn you down than let you down later.
Correct. Yeah. And that's basically it. I honestly never had anybody refuse to sign a bio-broker agreement with me. It's not even the very first one I ever did, which was a little nerve-wracking. We used to come in and ring the bell in those days if we got a contract signed. And I was like, I would say at this point in my career, I'm 100% on bio-broker. I've never had anybody say, I'm not signing it. And that doesn't mean there weren't objections. And how do we overcome objections? We ask questions. What's making that person anxious? Maybe I haven't explained it fully. If you're really in a caring, investigative, kind of motivated to get the best for them through you, you will just keep on asking the questions and the questions, like the people who said, oh, we're going to try and sell it ourselves for 2 weeks. Ask them questions. Oh, who's going to do it? Oh, at the HOA, you know, there are time sensitive things. You have to get the docs to them within 3 days. That could be challenging. Then call me. I don't want to see you do anything wrong. You call me and I'll walk you through it. Okay, you came referred from so-and-so, and I want to make sure that you don't do anything that you'll regret later, losing the buyer. So let me know, give me a call, 9 o'clock next week. Hi, Carol, Jane Bradley here. You know, we thought about what you said all night. We had no idea we had to do all of that. Would you come and list this place for us? Fine, okay,
There you go.
absolutely.
So what are your takeaways?
Is it a big deal? No. No. The biggest deal is opening this up every other day. Just have it on your phone, just get the conversation, it's a conversation, and it's just a fact-finding mission, okay? And helping people to a very, very high level is one of the things the reason I do real estate still is because I get tremendous satisfaction out of helping people do well and having their lives be better because I was in it for them. So, and the money is great too, but that's not my motivating factor. And I found in my career that comes, it just comes if you do the right thing by people, the money will come. You don't need to stress over the money part.
So what can we do? I mean, we can give you this information, show you these videos, but what can we do? What kinds of things can we do to help better prepare you for what's coming up? Script and dialogue play, script and role play.
When you do your script and role play, be the person coming in off the street. Have one person stay in the office and then go out and greet people. I'm always available at the door when people come. I don't have them walk in and the receptionist, I give them their name so they know who's coming and they get, oh yes, Carol's expecting me. I'm going to get here. Just the more you can do to set yourself apart from, you know, the agent that shows up or meets them at Starbucks with the ripped jeans and says, what what do you, you know? Look at you. Then go take a look. But you know, things are tough right now. The market's really hard and, you know, so the prices are high. I mean, they just don't know any better. Know better, because you will be the professional and it's not hard. It's just caring about people and being compassionate about helping them. Doreen knows all about that because she's that Asian too. But don't ever worry about the money. It'll come.
In this area, what is the normal protocol for having buyers in your car and taking them around?
I never have buyers in the car.
Meeting them at the property
Either let them do their own call. First of all,
for insurance?
well, more.
Well, your insurance will cover anybody in your car and I think you have to turn in a naming Keller Williams as a named insured. If you're gonna put people in your car, but even if you're not gonna put people in your car, if you're in an accident while you're taking buyers around.
I don't take buyers around, and the reason I don't is this. When I am showing homes, before I get there, I always call and confirm, I'm on my way, is the house ready? Do I need to do, you know what? I have a conversation, any changes, did you have any? I conduct business in my car as I'm driving there. And it saves me time, because when I get home at night, I like to be 100% present for my family. I don't like to be doing other things. So the thing is, I do my business in my car, and I'm set up to, you know, with my chit chat. And if they're, you know, if you take people out, let's say you just show them 3-4 houses, that's a whole bloody day. By the time you meet them and you drive somewhere and that's hot, and it's hot right now. I don't particularly, when I want to break in between the houses. I want time to kind of decompress so I'm fresh again. I don't want to be sitting sucking back a Diet Coke in front. In the next house.
Now, see, I'll give you a counterpoint. I find with all these gated communities and everything, that it's kind of a pain to have somebody follow you into the gate. What I used to do when I was working with buyers a lot was, I would spend, if I'm gonna show 6 homes.
Too many.
Before I, but
Too many.
Too many.
before I was gonna show 6 homes, I'd drive the route,
Sure.
okay?
Mhm.
And I would make sure I knew where the lockbox was. I would make sure which entrance I'm going in. I would know where the pool is and all that.
Yeah.
And then when I finally met them, there was no stress. I
Right.
could drive the route, pull in. There was one that I'll never forget during the short sale days. There was a condo and the lockboxes were all stacked up behind this white wall where the mailbox was. There was 14 of them.
No idea.
Which one goes?
How did I know if I didn't go before, which one was? So a little piece of tape on the 7th one. Oh, and you know, people are like, oh, this guy really knows what he's doing. He knows where to park, he knows where the lockbox is and all that. And sometimes if it's a high rise and you get permission from the listing agent, I would go and raise the shutters, because there's nothing worse than walking somebody in to a high rise that's dark. So.
In the
If I can
summertime, in
interject.
this season, now we're in until November, that's the way it's going to be.
Yep, that's the way they're.
Right, and that, in the summertime is the only time that I go and do that for anything that may have shutters down, but it depends on what your way is your way. For me, I always put people in my car. I don't care about that. I want to hear what they're saying to each other. I want to hear the interaction between the two of them, and I can't do that if they're in their car, not in my car.
Yeah.
I don't care about having the diet soda, which I don't drink, but water and cooling down. They are as hot as I am. My AC is blasting. My car has been running the whole time we were in there. I want to know what they're thinking, and I want to know how they're communicating with each other. It's a preference.
And they're both right ways.
And they are, there's
It's
no wrong.
whatever is comfortable. with
It's
you.
funny, because I'll never forget some of the experiences. That a lady, she's kind of measuring where the couch is, and
Yeah.
she's like, and the husband comes out, let's get out of here, this place is dump. Now you know, oh boy, this is a beauty.
But
Yeah.
you know, insurance wise, you just tell them, I'm overinsured, I have been, they know, you're taking people in your car, you have to have higher limits, it is what it is.
But you can get an umbrella, up to $1 million for,
There's no right or
$300
wrong.
a year.
It's what is,
Comfortable.
what's comfortable and sincere for you. That's the way I like to do business, especially in COVID, when we were walking around with rubber gloves up to here and goggles and masks.
I didn't show property during.
I did. But let me tell you, I had like a case of Lysol and
huh,
I actually had one of my best years during COVID. Maybe I was the only fool taking people out to look at houses. I don't know, but I did.
well, there was a Florida Realtors had a protocol, how to show a house in COVID.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I'd spray
masks.
locks.
Wear gloves.
Did you do any virtuals? Like COVID was all virtual.
No, not really. No. I went out there, but I would go, here's how I did it. I would do all the protocols and things. And I'm into a fault. My husband had a heart transplant, so I'm super concerned about germs. So I would unlock the door, run in, I'd say, wait in your car, and I'd go in, put all the lights on, put everything perfect, and then go out and let them go in by themselves. And then I'd spray my way out of the people's
Huh.
houses out of fairness. I'm not kidding. It was like,
You had
okay,
to-
so.
Like the backpack.
Change our gloves and change our gloves.
I had like 20 pairs of, the medical gloves, you know, the disposal, but sometimes, like, I didn't want any part of my flesh exposed. They were interesting times, but
Especially early on when COVID was really contagious. We had very low infection rate here relative to other parts of, other parts.
I did do all of my this is an important factor which I left out, and this is a very important factor. I did all my buyer consultations via Zoom. And they still signed the buyer broker agreements. I would email them, let them interview me, have the same dialogue, just tweak it a little bit, but sit there, just like we were, friends, and have the dialogue. And say, okay, so this is typically in the conversation where I would have you sign. I'm going to send it to you. When you send it back, I'm ready to start work. And I've never had any problem. They'd sign it and send it right back to me.
I still think that's a good practice. I still think that that's one thing that was really good that came out of COVID is we don't do it enough, but a lot of people don't want to be face to face if you're on a screen. There's something about video, at least for me, that really is a problem. But I think that if you can get used to doing more video chats and more, this lead comes through, you call them on the phone, you have a conversation with them. Maybe the next time you don't call them, you say, can we do a video chat? And you're on the video with them. It's like being face to face.
It's nuts. The only people who can't do a video call are people that don't have an iPhone. I have an iPhone. If the other party has an iPhone, you can have a video chat. But they usually know somebody.
You can always do it.
You can always do Google.
Yeah, yeah. WhatsApp,
Not
there's all
everybody's
kinds of.
tech-savvy. That's
Oh.
Right.
the
Oh, and FaceTime is the easiest.
Yeah,
FaceTime's so easy.
Yeah.
Now, I enjoy
Why
that,
bother
because I
typing?
get to see, I feed off people's affect too. I like to get feedback from people.
The other thing that I think that we, as agents, and maybe I'm one of the old school, so I don't do it, is why don't you send a video to somebody and say, hey, this is who I am, I just wanted to reach out and say, it's nice to meet you, love to be in contact, when can we get together? And send it in a text. They can see who you are. Before I was very anti-video that, and now I see the importance of it, if you will. So practice on your phone. I send birthday videos to people I know. I mean, I have never had so many past customers say, I cannot believe you sent me a video. That's awesome. And I'm like, bad hair day too.
You could actually put that in a smart plan.
It's a great
The
practice.
smart plan will send the videos.
Yeah, we just want to wish you a happy birthday. Be
Do
very
you
good.
do balloons and
I don't, but I could.
birthday?
Birthday cake, I'm gonna eat this for you. That's perfect.
And say, since I can't eat it, here's one for you.
That would-
Actually, right in
My
there.
past customers would expect that from me. So.
Have a couple like that, and then they become
We got it.
friends. Anyway,
Okay,
thank you so
thank you all.
much for being so engaged and all the questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll give you both.
Here's my card. I'm working with Carol.
Carol seconded
Here's my card. I'm working with Carol.
I'll never forget that. Adrian, this is Mr. Kim. We're working with Carol Sabatino. He's now my mother. That was funny there.
Alrighty then.
Shelley, anything you need to know? I've lived in Naples 30 years. Great. I've worked on many of the communities in Naples as a builder. Yeah.